Hey, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I guess it doesn't really matter where you guys are because this is not a synchronous class. So, what I wanted to do today was talk a little bit about organizing your writing and some first steps. Usually, I do this in class, and I have we have in class activities, and so what I'm going to ask you to do is to use some of these strategies to initiate your organization and outlining of your ideas for the project one here shortly. It's going to be an assignment, class participation activity. But I wanted to go through here and give you some ideas about some different ways that you can think about trying to prepare and your ideas and some structure and to get started. Because I know a lot of people have a tendency to, a lot of my first and second year writers have a tendency to come at writing and say, I'm stuck, I don't know where to start, and that's always kind of a problem. And I think the problem is that a lot of people, a lot of developing writers come to a writing assignment and think that they're just going to sit down and just start writing and it's all going to flow and it's going to be like, in the movies, it's all just going to come rushing out. And if you don't have a lot of experience with writing, let me go ahead and just tell you right now, that's not how it works. You don't just sit down and write and it doesn't just all come flowing out and then you have the masterpiece. Writing is quite simply is a pain in the ass. It requires organization, it requires thought and research and drafting and revision and all kinds of stuff. If you want good writing, let's put it that way. Which I hope all of y'all will be invested in it, because this isn't just a writing class. This is a class that's going to prepare you for the rest of your academic career, because there's not a day that's going to go by that you're not going to write something, even if it's something as simple as an email to one of your instructors or professors or somebody looking for some help with an assignment. So, all right, so let's start talking about this. So we have the traditional 5-paragraph essay structure that I'm sure all of you all have had some experience with. Usually, we start teaching this kind of the structure in middle school and definitely through high school. And, it's simple. You have an introduction and you have a conclusion at the end. And in the middle, you have 3 main points and you kind of talk about those. And, the introduction is going to introduce them all. You go through point 1, present some evidence, go through point 2, present some evidence, make your third point, present some evidence. And then your conclusion, of course, at the end is going to wrap the whole thing up. And, hopefully it should be cohesive, idea, well organized. It's very simple, kind of a structure, but there's nothing wrong with it at all. And so sometimes that's a good way to start to think about your first kind of writing assignments, is how you might want to organize them. But how do you get your ideas together to put into that? That's kind of really what I wanted to talk to you guys about here in this little lecture. So one of the first things you might want to think about doing is, you may come to a writing assignment already, the first thing is going to click and you're going to say, hey, this is what I want to write about. I know what I want to do. I got some pretty good ideas. And that's great. And so what I would say is, this is kind of what I think about as generalizing. So you're just going to have, start out with some good general ideas that you think are going to work for you. And that's fine. And so start writing those down. But what you can't really... you can, but it's not going to help you out very much. What you probably should think about is doing some research, even if you think you already know your topic pretty well. I guess, if it's a research project or something like that, if it's a reflective essay like this first one, it's going to be all on you. But that's not how most of your writing in school is going to be anyway. So you're going to need to do some kind of research, even if you think you know the topic well. Things change, facts change with new discoveries and new evidence. There's tons of stuff that you just don't know because you don't have life experience yet, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with not having life experience. You just haven't had enough life to fill up with that experience yet, so that's fine. So you need to do some research. And so what you're going to find over, so what you can do with generalizing is get a piece of paper, start a Word document, Google Doc, whatever you want. Just start jotting down some of your ideas, and then you're going to see, hopefully you'll start to see where some of these ideas are going to start to group together and just kind of make logical sense, particularly based on the research that you will have done. And then, from there, you can just keep refining your ideas and see how they are going to lay out into some type of organization or some kind of structure that makes sense to the way that you want to write. you guys have all pretty much had enough experience so far that I hope you are going to approach this, um, at least with having had some kind of experience with writing. So this shouldn't be anything new to new. Another thing that another strategy that you might want if generalizing doesn't work for you is questioning yourself. And I know that this is might be kind of a different idea or a different way to approach the writing, but if you're given a topic that to write about that you don't really have much experience with, one of the simplest things you can do is approach it and say, well, what don't I know, or what should I know, or what are the questions that I want to ask here? So start asking yourself some questions and say, well, I don't understand what this means, and write down those questions that you have about the topic. Write a couple, 3, 4, 5 questions down. Like, I don't understand what this means. How does this play into a larger context of, a broader topic? If you're in biology, how does, a certain aspect of biology tie into a larger, understanding of biological science? And so you might start asking those questions. This is where you're going to need to go do that research, and this is going to probably be the majority of your writing here in college. At the university is going to be where you're going to have to do some research, and you're going to have to find out information that you haven't learned before. And that's just the way it is. That's what you're here for. If you're not here to learn, I don't know what to tell you. You're not here just to show that you already know everything. So a large part of the work that you're going to need to do is research, and we're going to talk about this, and you're going to get more into this, into research methods and those kinds of things in 2201 when you take that, English 2201, maybe next year. Again, though, once you start getting some answers back through your research to your questions, and you can start to group those together, and then try to transition the research you found into a more traditional structure, intro, and then maybe 2 or 3 or 4 main ideas that you're going to address through that, and then wrap it up into a conclusion. And that's a pretty simple way to structure your paper. So I also want to talk to you a little bit about cluster mapping. I don't know if everybody has if you guys have experience with cluster mapping. And what this is a good way to generate ideas. So I've got a trusty whiteboard here. I stole this from my kids, and so we're going to use this a little bit. And so what you do with cluster mapping is, if you're given a topic, so let's think about the topic that I gave you for this project 1, is to think about other people, right? To think about, to consider how you had to maybe consider another person's life experiences, somebody who's different from you. Why are they different from you? What were the circumstances that made them different from you? And what can you learn from having to consider another person who doesn't have your same experiences? So when we're going to do that, let's start to think about a little bit of research. So if I was going to write this paper, the group of people right now in our political environment that kind of is the most different from me is probably, and I'm not like some wacko lefty, loon on the left fringe, but I'm definitely not like a Trump guy, right? So, which is fine. So maybe, Trump supporters, maybe, or, let's just say Trump supporters are people who I just really don't understand well, and I don't understand why. So what I might want to do is just say Trump supporters, right? And this is going to be kind of the middle of my my cluster mapping. I'm going to say, well, what don't I understand about that? What are the economic factors that might cause somebody to want to support President Trump? I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. Economic policy doesn't make sense to me from this this outgoing administration. So I just don't get why somebody would want to support him. What about cultural? What is it about the cultural aspect of this Trump kind of movement that I just don't get? What about religion? What are the religious aspects of this? I don't know. So what are some other things? Maybe so we have maybe the gun thing, right? I don't understand the gun. I have no problem with guns whatsoever, but I don't understand this kind of thing about guns. Maybe I need to research that a little bit. What is what role does social media have to play with all this? I don't know. I mean, I think I have an idea, but I don't know. Maybe I need to go do a little bit of research. What about, there's a huge thing about abortion, right? What about, here's another idea. So you got QAnon. How does that play into it, right? I don't know. So so this is my cluster map. Now I'm going to say Trump supporters. Okay, so there's all this stuff. Maybe I'm going to pick the ones that I think are probably going to be the most, um, make the most sense to me. And then we'll go, is that backwards? I can't tell if it's backwards. I'll have to look at it later. But so these are some of the issues that maybe I can go and research now, and that's going to give me a different way. But sometimes seeing things visually through that cluster mapping is going to be helpful. So I like to do this in class, and we can throw things up on the board and talk about ideas that way. But you can do it on a piece of paper. There are cluster mapping or bubble mapping programs that you can find that feed into, I think, into Google Docs or Google whatever thing. They have that kind of bubble or cluster mapping assignments there. These are a couple of different strategies that you can use to try to think about how to organize your ideas. And we're going to talk more about this, hopefully, and I'm going to kind of force you to do some organization and some thinking over the course of the next few weeks, with the first and second assignments particularly. But what I want to leave you with is that writing takes work, and writing requires you to go through iterative steps to do research, to actually think. Writing is nothing more than the symbolic concretization of your thoughts. And if you're not really thinking, if you're not being specific, you're not being methodical about the way that you are going about your thinking process, your writing is going to reflect that. And so I would ask you to consider, definitely to consider doing some type of formal organization of your writing before you get started. And the other thing that I do want to leave you with at the end is, I know a lot of people get stuck at the beginning of a writing assignment and will say, well, I just don't know where to begin. I've argued with this online with some people, and what it comes down to me is, what I will say is, don't start at the beginning. Get your organization going, and then just start writing out the main topics, the paragraphs or the sections of writing that you want to do. Just start with that. Start tackling the main points that you want to do, that you want to address. And the way your brain works, at least this is the way I understand it, the way your brain works is, when you start writing, when you start doing some of this, the actual composition, it's going to allow your brain to process the ideas that you're working on. So once you start that writing, once you get your main ideas flowing, I promise you, your introduction is going to come to you. I can almost promise you. But if you sit and you stare at a blank page waiting for your introduction to come to you, you're going to sit and you're going to wait until you're procrastinated so long that you are not going to get your assignment done. So what I'm going to tell you is, get your organization, get your research, get your bubble mapping, whatever you need to do, get that going, and then just start writing. And I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be pretty at the beginning. It's not going to be Pulitzer Prize worthy at the beginning. But as you're going to see as we go through this process over the next 14, 15 weeks, you're going to see that it's going to get much better and much easier as we go through the iterations and the recursive process and our peer edits and peer reviews. All right, so if you guys have any questions about organizing, or if you have trouble with organizing your writing or coming up with a way to do it, please let me know. I got tons of different ideas and options that we can help you out with. I'm here to help. All right, I'll take care.